Hello, everybody. How y'all doing? Hello. I'm just going to give it a few minutes before I start. This is uh, this is my second reading of this book. I'm just so in love with it. I really am. It's so interesting to me, and I had to sneak away from the children just so I could have my time, to kind of do something for myself here, and that's read. So, I would love for you guys to come on in, come on in, come on in. And as soon as I see one person, I'm gonna start. I'll start. All right. So bear with me. Bear with me. Bear with me. Bear with me. I just now wanna. How y'all doing? Come on in. Yeah, I just wanna. Okay, maybe not. I was trying to see if I could bring it down a little bit, but I can't. Give me just a minute. Hello, hello, hello. Hello. Hey, how y'all doing? I'm going to get started now. I said I'll wait until I get participants, so I'm going to get started. So, as you know, we're reading Hustle Harder, Hustle Smarter by 50 Cent, Curtis Jackson. And I'm going to pick up where I left off yesterday. And that was still on the introduction though, on page 15 of the introduction. And then I was talking about the principles that he stated that we needed to possibly, he's encouraging us to use as our own, that the ones that he used. So the last one I read was don't be afraid to compete. And the next one will be learn from your losses, learn from your L's. Okay. As many victories as I've racked up over the years, I've experienced many more losses. That doesn't make me the exception among successful people. It makes me the rule. I don't know an affluent rapper, mogul, executive, or entrepreneur whose losses don't far outweigh their wins. What separates those people from the pack is that instead of complaining about or hiding from their losses, they actively seek to learn from them. The next principle is avoid the entitlement trap. Nothing was ever given to me in life. I've had to fight for everything I've earned. That sounds familiar, don't it? All my life, I had to fight. That's why the concept of entitlement has never seeped into my mentality. But almost everywhere I look, from the streets to the boardrooms, I still see a lot of entitled people. Hello, hello. Hey, hey, Heather. You're never going to find lasting success until you take full responsibility for what happens in your life. No one owes you anything, just as you don't owe anyone else. Once you accept that fundamental truth and accept that you control your journey, so many doors that seem closed are going to open up in front of you. Again, I'm reading Hustle Harder, Hustle Smarter by Curtis Jackson, known as 50 Cent. Okay? Growing up reading was often seen as an assignment that must be endured instead of a tool that can help improve your life. Because of that mentality, no matter how many secrets I share in this book about happiness, business, and improving your life, there are a lot of folks in the hood who still won't ever find them. They simply don't sit down and read books. Now, that's one reason a lot of people, whether they're in the hood or what, I've learned as a teacher, just don't read. So that's why I decided to take time out and read for you. and, and read for you because I love to read. I love reading, but everybody just don't share that passion. And so I have my father was an avid reader. He rode around with books, lots of books in his car. And that's how I rode too. Lots of books. Well, his was more like a library in his car. And that's what I was taught to do. That's what I learned to do. It's what I love to do. But everyone does not have that passion. And so I used to take the approach with my kids and say, well, Black people died for us to learn to read and to want to read and this and that, and you should read. Well, I had to step back on that. I had to step back and say to myself, everyone does not uh everyone doesn't like the same things I like, and we have to respect that. And so, therefore, that's why you have people like me who are teachers, and I can tell you some things or I'll read to you. Yes, it's 50 cents. Curtis Jackson, 50 cents. Okay, so back to the reading. So, it's not entirely their fault, right? A lot of books aren't written in a language that feels accessible to everyone, and that is so true. Personally, I didn't get into reading until I found writers like Donald Goins and Iceberg Slim who wrote in a voice that felt familiar to me. Y'all forgive me, but I already said in the beginning that I would stop. That's why you probably need to read for yourself too. But I would stop and add my little points to it. And Donald Goins and Iceberg Slim are great authors. Great authors. I learned about Iceberg Slim through a friend of mine, ex-boyfriend of mine who loved reading him. And I was like, who? And he was like, girl, you missing out. You are missing out. And so I read Iceberg Slim, every single book this guy wrote. I read it. I even watched this documentary because he was awesome. Now, I don't know anything about that lifestyle, but I love to read, and it was so interesting and he wrote in a voice that I could see. And that's what 50 Cent is saying here is that people will read if you write in a voice that they are used to and accustomed to. So therefore we need more writers, and it'll attract people that read. Um okay, and I can go a lot deeper in that, but I won't. So because I don't want to lose anybody here. But he also mentioned that he got into writers like Don Miguel Ruiz, which is a great writer. Paul Coelho, great writer, wrote uh oh Lord, don't let me forget. Don't let me forget. Oh my God, I forgot. But anyway, yes, I have books by both of them, but I just totally forgot just that fast. And one who has even become a close friend and collaborator, he is Robert Greene, and Robert Greene wrote the 50 Laws or 48 Laws of Power. So that's good, and I think he also wrote 48 Laws of Success. Uh, yeah, I think so. But anyway, so even if you're not from the streets, and given how diverse my audience has become, there's a good chance you're not. Exactly. I'm not from the streets, so but I love you 50. These days, a lot of folks have replaced reading with clicking. They'll skim the surface of the topic, maybe watch a short video, maybe read a Wikipedia page, and feel like they've put in work. Sorry, but a few clicks or scrolls just aren't enough. I found that you need to learn about multiple examples and read about multiple scenarios before certain principles start to sink in. After you finish this book, you might only take a few of the principles with you, even just one. That's fine. That was the case when I read Robert's 48 Laws of Power. Ask me today what the book was about, and all I could tell you is, as the student, you never outshine the master. That's the truth. So, um, There were 47 other laws in that book, but that's the one that stayed lodged in my brain. And because it's never left me, I've been able to apply it so many times over the years. I've literally made millions by remembering to follow that principle. My hope is that you'll leave this book with at least one fundamental principle lodged in your brain, too. Maybe it will be about fearlessness. Maybe it will be about controlling perspective or the importance of evolving. Whichever principle it is that resonates with you, hold on to it. Carry it with you until it becomes a part of your life. That's good. That is good. Almost done with the introduction. Long introduction, but we're at the last page. Then we get into the meat and potatoes. Okay. When you get to the top of the game, when you have all the money, then your perspective shifts and you start to look at what really matters, how you help people. I'm not someone who is comfortable resting on their laurels. If I'm around at 70, I still want to be contributing and participating. It may require less of me, but I'll still be a part of the culture, helping push it forward. I might not be jumping around anymore, but I'll still be there, trying to help. I've helped people in ways that maybe you haven't seen or heard before, but this book is one of the most effective and far reaching ways that I can do it. For every reckless tweet or wild lyric from 50 Cent, trust that there's a method to how Curtis Jackson is moving. A strategy behind each action that is battle tested and proven to work. This is my chance to share those strategies with you so you can move with purpose and confidence in your own life. I'm excited that you've joined me on this journey. Now we get into the book, the actual book. Finding Fearlessness. I wouldn't give a thinker's damn for a man who isn't sometimes afraid. Fear's the spice that makes it interesting to go ahead. That's Daniel Boone. And y'all remember Daniel Boone, right? That's way back, way back, way back. When I was a child, I learned about Daniel Boone. Okay. A few years ago, I hired a French guy named Quarantine to run my website. When he wasn't working for me, one of quarantine's habits was to take selfies in a spectacular setting, standing precariously on the edge of a cliff or sitting on the roof of a high rise with his legs dangling over the sides. When he'd show those pics to the guys in my office, they would shake their heads and laugh, saying, "Only a white guy would do that." To them, it was like skydiving or trying to pet wild animals, an unnecessary risk that only someone who had never experienced real danger would take. I saw it differently. I saw an opportunity for freedom. So one day, I took Quarantine up to the roof of my old offices in Times Square to take some pictures of my own. But instead of just dangling my legs over the side, I decided to up the ante. On the roof was a water tower, a wooden barrel-like structure rising several stories above us. Without any hesitation, I climbed up. I climbed up its rickety ladder and took a seat on its edge. I must have been 40 stories up in the air. Below me, the people on the streets looked like ants at a picnic. If I slipped, it would have been a long trip down to the sidewalk. The stakes and me were very high, but I didn't experience any fear. Instead, I took in a spectacular view. The New York Times building towered over me to my left, and the Hudson River sparkled behind me. I felt incredibly alive. Seeing my hometown from a bird's eye view filled me with the same ambition I felt as a younger man. New York City was literally at my feet, the city of my dreams, and I was going to keep hustling my hardest to realize every one of them. I leaned back and Corton snapped a spectacular shot for Instagram. When I got back down to my office, I posted it with a caption: "I live on the edge. I'm only free because I'm not afraid. Everything I was afraid of already happened to me." God, that spoke to me. Everything I was afraid of already happened to me. A lot of people love the post. That's real, one wrote, with the other adding, man, what a powerful word. But not everyone appreciated it. About a week after posting the pic, I received a letter from my insurance company explaining that if I knowingly risked my life like that again, they would immediately cancel my policy. The insurance company shouldn't have been surprised, though. If there's one trait that have defined me since an early age, it's fearlessness. A lot of people probably think I was born fearless. I might project that energy, but it's not true. I was scared of the dark as a child, just like I was definitely terrified of being killed when I was on the street, or petrified of failing when I started rapping. I've experienced anxiety and angst of all kinds. The difference is I refuse to allow myself to grow comfortable in those fears. Comfort, I've learned, is a dream killer. It saps our ambition, blinds our vision, promotes complacency. The number one thing most people are comfortable with is fear. Not that most of them would admit it. Ask someone if they're living in a constant state of fear, and they'll probably say, of course not. That's just pride talking, though. Fear dominates most people's lives. Fear of loss, fear of failure, fear of the unknown, fear of loneliness. I don't think there's anything shameful about experiencing fear. A little bit of paranoia is actually extremely helpful. There are a lot of real dangers out there, a lot of people with bad intentions. Being aware of those possibilities makes it easier to avoid them. What you cannot do is become complacent with any of those fears. If you fear loss, you can't spend your life avoiding intimacy and love, something I've struggled with. If you fear failure, you can't stop taking risks. If you fear the unknown, you can't stop trying a new experience. It is not death that a man should fear, said the Roman emperor and philosopher Marcus Aurelius, but he should fear never beginning to live. Wow, that is great. That is great. I was telling someone that's close to me that I would hate for him to be on his deathbed and say he has never lived, you know, just because of fear. It's because of fear. I can trace the root of my own sense of fearlessness back to one specific event, the death of my mother. That's a special kind of fear, Lord, Lord, Lord. One that's hard to describe. More than getting shot 9 times, losing my mother was the most significant thing that ever happened to me. Even in middle age, I could still feel her loss. I know that's right. But through her death, my mother managed to give me a rare gift, the seed of fearlessness. It would take a lot of time for that trait to fully blossom in me. I would, unfortunately, have to experience a lot more difficult and dangerous moments until it became second nature. It would take a lot of time for that trait to fully blossom in me. I would, unfortunately, have to experience a lot more difficulty and dangerous moments until it became second nature. In this chapter, I'm going to share some of the experiences and situations that helped encourage that sense of gussiness in me, that allowed me to accept that what lives on the other side of fear isn't danger or even death, but freedom. I want to show you that fearlessness is a strength you can develop too, a muscle you can build, hopefully without having to experience the trauma that made mine so jacked. You don't have to lose your mother or survive getting shot 9 times to develop the belief that you can survive anything that happens to you. That the only thing you can't overcome is never taking risks in the first place. Don't be afraid to get hit. Team sports were my thing as a kid. Didn't matter what we were playing, football, basketball, or baseball. If we lost, I'd always be quick to point out whose fault it was. Yo, we got blown because you can't guard your effing man. I might tell a teammate who got burned on defense in basketball. He kept busting your butt. We lost because of you, bro. It wasn't that I was trying to evade responsibility. If I made a bad play or couldn't guard my man, I'd be the first to admit it. It was more that I didn't like having my success ride on someone else's ability or inability to perform. It's a feeling I haven't been able to shake this day. I always say that if I were ever going to bet on a horse at the track, then let it be me, because I know I'm going to run as hard as I can. I was smart enough to accept I wasn't emotionally suited for team sports. I needed a sport where if I lost, it was my fault and my fault alone. Individual sports like golf and tennis weren't sports anyone I knew played. I only lived about 20 minutes from where the U.S. Open is played in Flushing, but it might just as well been another state. And in my hood, you usually only find yourself running if someone was chasing you. There was, however, a police athletic league boxing gym near me, run by a local fighter named Allah Understanding. Allah Understanding. He was from the nearby Baisley projects and came up in the days when having a strong knuckle game was something people respected and aspired to, and even feared. I trained with Allah when I was around 12 years old, and I knew almost right away that boxing was the right fit. One day I was hanging out at a gym when a street dude named Black Justice stopped by, accompanied by one of his boys. Blackie, as we all called him, was one of the most respected dealers in Baisley. A lot of lieutenant for the Supreme Team, the biggest drug crew in Queens at the time. His boy was essentially his muscle, a constant presence to make sure a rival would have to think twice before trying him. They were probably only 18 or 19 only themselves, but already their reputations were well known around the neighborhood. The kind of young guns you didn't want any problem with. The gym got quiet as we all watched Blackie and his boy walk around. Then, without a word, Blackie's boy stopped in front of one of the heavy bags and started laying into it. Bam, bam, bam. As the youngest kid in the space, common sense would dictate I keep my mouth shut and just observe. But maybe because I was the youngest, I felt a little bolder, and my big mouth got the better of me. As soon as the guy was finished on the bags, I called to him. Hey man, you look good hitting that bag, I said loud enough for everyone in the gym to hear. But that bag doesn't hit back. Blackie whipped around. What you say, young boy? You talking to me? No, you big and I quickly replied, I'm talking to him. I said nothing toward his man. Most guys in their position might have whooped my butt, or worse, on the spot. But these guys took my talking in stride. Blackie had a generous spirit, free of greed that infected a lot of his peers. Instead of taking offense, they both respected my outsized courage. And again, y'all who join me, I am reading 50 Cent book, Hustle Harder, Hustle Smarter. It is a good read. And if I don't mind you coming in and out or what have you. I'm going to stop in 30 minutes, so I have about 8 minutes to go. And where I stop, I'll start again later. Okay? So, page 6. Yeah, I like this kid, Blackie said, gesturing to me. We're going to have some champions come out of here because these little ends are crazy. That recognition alone would have made my whole day. Instead, Blackie did us one better. This gym could use some work if we're going to get the most out of these fighters, he announced, looking around at the shabby setting. What kind of stuff do y'all need? Just write it down. 2 weeks later, the gym was completely refurnished. Blackie had gotten us boxing shoes, trunks, new ropes, punching bags, and a new set of weights to replace our old rusty set that probably hadn't been updated since the 60s. From then on, Blackie took care of us. Whatever we needed, he got us. Although it was technically the Parks and Recreation Department's building, after that it was Blackie's gym. I hadn't opened my I hadn't opened my big mouth just to get it fed, but that's what ended up happening. It was an important lesson for me to learn. You need to bend fear into moments of action at every opportunity, because the fearless not only recognize but also often reward one of their own. I entered Allah's gym as a chunky 12-year-old. The 150 pounds I was carrying making me seem older than I was. 12 years old, 150 pounds. My God. You ever heard the expression punching above your weight? Well, in that gym, I had to punch above my weight and age from my first day. There were no other kids my age in the program. So Allah understanding had me fight whoever was in my weight class, which usually meant opponents 4 to 5 years older than me. That might not seem like a big deal, but there's a massive difference between a 12-year-old and a 17-year-old. And I'm going to stop right there for a second. He makes a great point there. In anything, people always talk about age is nothing but a number. That's not true in a whole lot of ways. And one in particular is my grandson is a little dude, and he's 9 years old. So on his karate team, because he's smaller, they put him according to his weight class instead of his age. I understand that totally, because they didn't want him to be really beat badly, by anybody who's his age. But did they consider the kids younger than him, because he's smarter in a sense, and his dexterity is different, is more advanced. He has the ability to move quicker, in my opinion, because he's older, and he's been doing things. He's been walking longer. He's been moving longer. So he beat down those kids. They were his size, exactly his size, and maybe one or two were taller, but he beat them down. And in my opinion, it's because he wasn't more experienced in karate. He was more advanced at just being on this earth longer. You know what I mean? So, and then we also know, I ain't gonna say this, but little black kids, little black boys, hey, I'm just gonna say they a little bit more. They different, okay? They're different, in a good way, in a great way. All right, so let me go on. He said he had to punch above his weight. Well, in that gym, I had to punch above my weight. There were no other kids my age in the program, so all understanding had 50 to fight above his weight. I mean, in his weight class. So that was above his age. So that meant he fought kids 4 and 5 years older than him. And I think Mike Tyson had to do the same thing. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But anyway, that might not seem like a big deal, but there's a massive difference between a 12-year-old and a 17-year-old up here, and even in its physical movement. Those 17-year-olds were basically men, whereas I was still waiting on my balls to drop. I might have been in the same weight class, but I lacked their strength and maturity. It was intimidating as hell to step into the ring with those guys. And then that goes back to when you see, you will hear young guys say, well, he got old man strength, when they fight. 20-year-olds try to fight 50-year-olds and think that they're going to win all the time, and a lot of the times they don't win, because that 50-year-old has maturity, and then he still has that powerhouse, that stored up strength. He might regret it the next day because he's sore and can't get out of bed, but he has that strength, and it comes from here. Okay. He said, I never gave in to that fear, mostly because Allah understanding refused to let me. One of the best things he and the other coaches did was refuse to coddle me. Oh, if an older boy hit me in the face while we were sparring, they didn't stop the proceedings and ask if I was okay. They were going to teach me to keep fighting no matter how scared or hurt I was. And that mother that my grandson fought in karate, she allowed her son to stay out there and take it, and I admired that. I felt bad for. I felt really bad, but she allowed him to be out there to take it. She felt like he's a boy and it's going to teach him something. So the lesson I learned from those whippings would be twofold. First off, I learned that I could survive them. Yes, getting hit in the face wasn't pleasant. It would leave you disoriented. It would hurt. It might leave your eyes watering. But those blows didn't kill me. They didn't even knock me out. Once I realized I could Once I realized I could absorb them and then keep moving forward, most of the fear had felt evaporated. Second, I'm forever indebted to Allah understanding for teaching me this. I learned that if I didn't like getting hit, then I need to do something about it. Keep your hands up. He'd yell if I let down my guard and my opponent tagged me. If my opponent started laying into me with body shots after trapping me in a corner, Allah will holler, get back to the center of the ring. Punishment, Allah understanding taught me. Punishment wasn't something I had to accept. I could always do something about it. Okay, so guys, I am going to I just had one person try to come in and join, but I'm getting ready to end in a few minutes. Maybe I'll keep going just a little bit longer, just so I can just so I can do a well, I'm not gonna be able to do that. But yeah, someone was trying to join and I couldn't get her on. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I couldn't get you in. But anyway, I'm gonna end right here, and then we'll pick up. We ended on page 7, and I'll start there when I start again. I don't want to put a time frame on when I'll start again because it may not work that way. I have these children, and so I have to kind of get in where I can when it comes to this. But this is the book, guys. This is the book. And thank you for joining me. And I'll be back. God bless.